that journal selection is like very important topic when it comes for scholarly publications, or whatever the data we have or we generate through various experiments or sources or primary sources or secondary sources, and ultimately uh, to get the recognition of your data or to get the recognition of your work, I guess publication is most important thing, and that too if you want at an international level. So probably peer reviewed journals are probably a very good option for uh, getting the recognition at an international level. So considering that, so in today's topic, like understanding the web of science, Scopus, SCI, so there are different types of indexing that we will go through, and then what is quartiles, and then there are certain journal selection tools that we will be discussing with the subsequent slides. So I think this is a very important proverb that knowledge is acquired cumulatively and collaboratively, and the principal mode for sharing this knowledge is the institution of scholarly publishing, right? So obviously, like whatever the knowledge you get through various sources, as I said, that maybe you are doing your study sometimes collaboratively, sometimes cumulatively you are getting data, and ultimately it has to be shared. You cannot just simply keep it, in your wardrobe, and and just keep it like as it is, right? It should be published somewhere. So that is what I think very important. So throughout our today's lecture, I guess we'll be try to fulfill all those objectives as mentioned here, that is develop strategies and discover tools to identify credible venues for your research. So we'll try to understand that what are the ways by which we can identify the journals, we can understand that which journal is very important, then probably what are their impact factors, what are the importance of their transparency and their timelines and everything. Then learn tools to identify prominent publications in your field. So when you become expert in any topic, how to find publications in that domain. So that is one thing which we are going to cover. I think the another point, another objective, third one is very important, that understanding warning signs of potentially fraudulent publishers. So there are many publishing companies that we might have seen, or you might have seen, that uh, are fraud, right? So they do some fraud for the publications, and they you can receive lot of emails on that, and then ultimately that creates a problem. So that is also one objective we are going to see. And then finally develop skills to build upon trustworthy information, right? So how to believe on some trustworthy publishers or journals. It's not only publishers, like sometimes what happened that I have seen that many journals also get banned due to some fraudulent activities. So that has to be stopped, and ultimately, like, we are also responsible some way having these kind of issues with the journal. So I think my first question is obvious, that have you published your research before? So I guess there are around 80 candidates I can see in your this particular uh, MS team. So can anyone tell me, I mean, how many of you have published? Maybe just you can raise thumbs up so that I can understand that how many of you have published your research. Okay, well, I think most of you have already researched papers in various journals, probably, that I can definitely understand. So it's good to to have. I mean, it should not go to the basics of what is all that, but then I think I'll focus on the importance aspect of the first thing that is on the publication is ethics of authorship, right? So, like when you write a paper, or when you try to complete your paper, the first thing that is very important is that you should follow the ethics of the authorship. Understand what merit authorship, right? Many times I have seen that in I'm not mostly in only private universities, but in various NITs or IITs or even other universities, maybe, or in foreign universities, probably this is a situation that many times what we see, that someone is writing something and the other one will say, yaar mujhe bhi paper mein add kar do, right? So I think that is not the ethical thing. Like if you have not worked on any sort of study, probably you should not be the part of that study. So that is, I think, the first ethics one should understand when understanding the writing, publication, journal selection, and all that, right? So you must follow the ethics. And that's why even you have seen that nowadays journal asks the author contribution statement or author creditorship statement, right? Where we have to give that what, or I mean, which author has done the what kind of work in your study. So that is, I think, the first thing that we should learn. So there are four criteria for the authorship. I think you can go through some of the references that I have mentioned here, and there are again various journals have given the understanding of what are the four criteria for the authorship or what are the criteria for the authorship. So first thing is, I think, what is I have mentioned, substantial contributions to the conception or design of the work. Let's say you have designed your work or you have come up with a concept of your work. So that is, I think, the first thing you can be an author, right? If you have not designed at all, but then you have little bit contributed to that work, like for example, drafting the work or revising it critically for important intellectual content, then also you can be an author, right? So that is again the second thing. Third thing is final approval of the version to be published. Let's say you are four or five different authors in each in one journal or in one publication. Then you should have the consent, like for from everyone, that whatever you have mentioned in your in your publication or in your manuscript, so you should like accept that, right? Otherwise, if you are not having consensus between all of you, then probably you should not be a part of that particular publication, right? Because tomorrow, let's say if any question will arise, so it won't be only for a single author, that is first author or the last author or the corresponding author, right? The question will be raised for all the different authors. So that is, I think, very important, that we should understand the ethics of what authorship means, right? So agreement to accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved, right? So I think these are the four important points. Obviously, there are many other points that has to be considered, but I guess I was going through a lot of such different journal, and I found this is very important to convey that what are the ethics of the authorship. Okay, then it comes for, learn expectations of author order in the discipline. So you should know that who should be the first author, who should be the last author, who should be the corresponding author, right? Many times, PG students or PhD students, those who are going for publication, it is like very important because sometimes you are applying for the job, and then many times what happens that you are not the first author, and that way your credibility for the publication will automatically go down, right? So first author will always have the more credibility, and obviously the corresponding author will have the more credibility. And then second and third authorship, I mean, those who are the second author or third author maximum will have some credits to that paper. But you might have seen that there are many such publications where 40, 50 authorships are there, right? In very good journal as well, right? So I think it should be avoided as much as possible. Although, I mean, many times you have seen that those 40, 50 authors have not equally contributed to that journal, right? So it should be avoided. Sometimes also we have seen that many authors, what they do, that they simply ask some good person, good people in the academics, that you please be an author of this particular work, that what I have carried out. But then again, as I said, that it is not the ethical practice to add some person just for the name, right? So that is something should be avoided as much as possible. And then review the role of corresponding author. I mean, I think this is very important. Sometimes people try to become a corresponding author, and when some review comments come, they probably are not aware about the review comments and all those things, and then ultimately they do not do the timely submission of the revision and all that thing, right? So again, we should know what is the role of the corresponding author, right? So corresponding author is the author which will correspond everything, right? He will be the first person to contact by the publisher, by the journal, and then will have to submit everything, as a corresponding author. So I think these are some of the very important ethics of the authorship that one should understand. Okay. Now the next thing, that there are various journals, like in India also we can see that there are various very good journals probably, and then outside India, abroad, we have very known journal publishers, those who journal in various domains. Like I am coming from the civil engineering background and coming from the environmental background, so I know that there are very good journals in all those different types of publishers that are available. Like one of publisher that I generally follow in my all like publication journals, that is mostly elsewhere I go. Then I go for Springer journal publications, I go for Wiley, sometimes I go for ASC. So I have 4 or 5 list maximum that I will be following. Like there are other journals, like there is MDPI, there is Emerald Publishing and all that. But I rarely follow that because the peer review process, what these journals follows, like in Elsevier and in Springer or ASC, is probably better than what we have seen in MDPI and in Emerald and all other type of publication. Again, it depends on in which publisher you have a specific journal that you are targeting. So that is again very important. I should not be like biased with that which publication is good and which is not, but then you should know that where mostly your areas are lying, right? Your research areas are lying. So that is how I think you can decide one way for the journal selection. Okay. There are other ways, obviously, to have the journal selection. So I think the first thing is consider what publications you and colleagues read, right? That is, I think, most important. Sometimes what happened that you go through a very good journal, and unfortunately, when it comes for the submission, because many times we have seen that the promotion also depend on. I mean, in many private universities, I have seen that the promotions are also depend on the publications, right? Or sometimes on the research proposals, submission and research projects, right? But then I guess in that context, maybe I have seen that many faculties, they try to publish in a journal where it will take very less time, right? So again, that will create a bad impact of your publication, because although you have published in a journal which is maybe the Scopus index, but then probably it is not in the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 type of quartiles, right? Again, I hope everyone knows that is these quartiles are also very important. What is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4? We will discuss on that as well. So first thing that you have to consider, that what publications you read, what are the journals that you are going through, what are the name of the publishers that you are going through, whether it is a peer reviewed journal or not, whether it is time taking journal or not, all those like different aspects of the journal selections are like very important to consider while submitting your manuscript. Okay. And the next thing, obviously, probably you have done the PhD, you are into PG, you are doing MTech, you are, completing PhD, or maybe you are a faculty. But then at some point of time, you must, had some mentor to guide you that which direction we should focus, right? So I think consider where mentors and experts in the field publish. So that is again another criteria I always consider while selecting my journals, that you should always consider, like whatever the supervisor have, like my PhD supervisor during my PhD time. So I used to see that where is my supervisor's publication mostly having, right? Sometimes it might be possible that the student have the senior students have not published in a very good journal, but then learning from that particular example, you can obviously go further and you can search from the internet that which particular journal we can focus, right, for our publication. So you can always see that where the mentors have published, where the different experts, like that let's say some faculties are from the mechanical domain, right? And let's say they know that there are certain journals which our mentors or their mentors or uh, different experts in that domain have published. So you can always focus, you can just try to select that, go for the transparency, check the journal website whether everything is given. So there are certain criterias which is like very important while selecting the journal, like for example timelines, because this is again very important. In most of our PhD degrees we require journal publications, right? And for that there is specific timeline is like very important to be considered, right? So I think that is again very important. So we should see that whether the journal is having the transparency of the timeline, whether it can give the reviews within the timelines or not. So these are some of the different criteria we will discuss again on that particular topic. And based on that, the different like considering the different mentors and experts and their publications, and how they have published, and what are the way or what are the trends of their publication, we can obviously divide like those publications in top tier, second tier, and third tier. Obviously, like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. But sometimes Q2 journals are also good. It's not like that always Q1 journals are also good, right? But there are certain reasons why these journals are coming into Q2 and Q3 or Q4, right? So at least we can target at least Q1 and Q2. Q3, Q4 as much as possible we should avoid such kind of journals, right? And based on that, you can decide. Like for me, I have almost 150 journals list, which is with me, which is in my Excel sheet. I always follow that because these are like since my PhD from 2015 to 2019, and now it's like 2055, 2025. So almost 10 years. I have collected a lot of names of the journals. I have understood their pattern. I have understood their timelines, and based on that, I have made my list. And from that, I used to select like if I want to go for any sort of publication, right? So probably you can also go for such kind of Excel sheets and prepare your list for your easiness, right? Okay. Again, there is one thing that you can also go through the researchers website. So probably there are various researchers not only in India but outside India also. There are a lot of researchers which are working in the same domain. So you can go through their websites, find out where they have published their data, where they have submitted their data. And probably that is also one of the way where you can also select few good journals. Not maybe every journal will be helpful for you, but then based on that, probably you can get a very good journal, right? Okay, then search by author in subject database. So you can obviously, based on the subject, you can also find the data on that different types of the journals that you are looking for. And references from important papers. So many times also I follow this pattern that let's say I work in biochar, is one of the prime area in our environmental engineering. So I try to find the papers on the biochar, and then from that biochar papers again I go into the references, and then I find, okay, this is very specific journal for the biochar. And through that only I have found like 4 or 5 very important journals which probably can help us to get this kind of data published, right? So again, that is also one way to select the journal. So I always think that you should not directly go to the Elsevier website or Springer website directly and find out what are the different types of journal. First, you can always review all those different criteria, like as I said, that you can go to the publications for the colleagues, for the mentors, experts. You can go to the researchers website, you can go to the references, and then finally you can go for the selection of your journal, right? Okay, you can also through author search, you can also do through web of science. That is, there is one website of web of science like Clarivariate Analytics. And then Google Scholar, obviously very common this platform for for finding the different researchers, and based on that again you will get lot of good journals, right? What they have published, where they have published, all those things are like given very clearly on those platforms. Okay, and there are certain other, what you can say, like by the topic. Let's say if you want to work in, VLSI, like anyone from the electronics or electrical, those who are working on the VLSI circuits, probably by the topics also you can get those kind of studies, and based on that you can again select some kind of journals, which is very important for your for your domain. So these are like different UF, University of Florida, and then Ulrich Global Serials Directory, Third Ions Brownsy, Google Scholar Search, Schemago. Schemago is again very important database where you will find impacts of most of the journals like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. All those different types of the quartiles are also given in the Schemago journal. And then obviously you have this Web of Science journal citation report. Then I think this is one of the screenshot that I have took from Clarivate Analytics. That is again Web of Science, and then this is from the Schemago Journal and Country Rank. That is JCR. Probably very important in terms of understanding that a particular journal is uh, coming in which particular quartile, whether it is in coming Q1, it is Q2, it in Q3. Mostly those databases are given. I mean, those kind of data are given in these kind of websites. Like if you go Schemago Journal and Country Rank, you will try to, I mean, you will get many things regarding that particular journal you are selecting, right? Including impact factor, including the total citations of that particular journal. Then the self citation. I think you are aware that many times, many publishers, or sorry, many authors, what they do, that they try to do the self cite just to increase the citation. But again, if you do more self cite, that will reduce the impact of your study internationally, right? So as much as possible, self citation must be reduced. Maximum 10% is fine. In each paper, maximum 5 to 10% is fine. But if you are going more than that, probably it will affect your impact of your publication to the international readers, right? So that is something must be avoided. And then some data also is given in Clarivate Analytics, that is in Web of Science database. Probably you can also find that which particular journal is best suited. Like there are certain what I can say, tools in the publisher's website that indicates about that, let's say if you put some abstract, and immediately based on the abstract or immediately based on the keywords, it will give you that what kind of journals you should select, right? Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that you have the same abstract as the journal's aim and scope. That doesn't mean that your paper will get published. But then the chances of the publication, or the chances of at least peer review, will be more, because you are targeting the best suited journal based on your abstract, right? So I think that is very important. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, right? So Springer Nature. So you can see there is a Springer Nature publisher's website, and you can get this journal. What I can understand, that the journal suggester. So you can put the manuscript title here. You can put the manuscript text, that is maybe the abstract here, and the subject area, and then go for a clicking on this suggest journal. So based on that also, you will get at least 10 to 15 journals, uh, so that where you can, I mean, you can try to submit your paper, right? So that is also one way, one tool which is like given in most of the reputed publishers. Like similarly for the Elsevier Science Direct, you can see there is a journal finder, and you just put the match by abstract, or search by keyword. So there are both ways. So if you put the abstract and just go for find journals, you will get at least 15 to 20 different journals in your domain, right? Again, as I said, that doesn't mean that definitely your paper is going for the peer review, but the chances obviously is more compared to random selection of the journals. So this is also very important tools that obviously you can go for. There are other more tools for finding journals, like you can simply enter proposed title and abstract, scramble to protect scooping, and request matching authors and articles or publication. Like even there are certain nowadays I can see that there are certain AI based tools are available, which also again helps you to, based on the authors, based on the articles published in the same domain, probably you can also get the different names of the journal, right? So these are like, this is also one website, Jane. You can also find out janebiosmantics.org, from where you can also understand the article influence based on the title, right? Based on the topics. So that is also different types of tools are available. Okay. Now, is this a good publication for my work? So now how to understand all those things, right? Or maybe is this a good journal, rather than, I will say, rather than publication, we'll say that whether it is a good journal for your work, like whatever the work you have completed, whatever the study you have, you are going to submit, right? So whether it is good or not, how to decide that, right? So I think there are certain criteria, there are certain possible publishing venues which you have to understand based on those criteria, right? So first is, I think, appropriate scope. So let's say if you are targeting some journal for your publication, and you know that where your work lies, right? Where you are actually working, in which domain. So you should always match your work with the aims and scope. Many times I have seen that someone say, "अरे यार ये journal तो अच्छा है," and then people will follow this because वो बहुत कम time में देता है. But ultimately, if your work is not in that domain, many times I have seen that even in computer based journals, there are certain journals which got published from the civil engineering domain. You just see, I mean, this is the kind of publications that we can see in many places or many times. But unfortunately, people have less citations for that kind of publication because it is from the computer domain. And if someone from the from the civil engineering, which hardly having 5% of the computer things, or software based things, will have, will have obviously impact more in terms of, negative impact more on those kind of publications, right? So you should always try to match the scope of your work with the journal's scope or aims and scope, right? That is again very important. Then quality content, obviously while focusing on your writing, you should have the quality content of your data. You should have some graphs, you should have some, probably some tables, some statistics. If you are working on the experiment, you should have some statistics. If you are doing some literature review, you should have some bibliometric, some systematic review where you are focusing on a particular point or particular target of your publication and all that, right? And then based on that, you can understand the publisher, which publisher should be focused, right? Whether it should be Elsewhere, whether it should be Springer, it should be Wiley, ASC, Taylor and Francis, right? Oxford. So all those different types of publisher you can choose based on the scope, based on the content that you have in your work, right? Because I have seen like AFC journals. AFC are very good, very reputed journals. We know that it is American Society for the Civil Engineers. Similarly, for ASME, we have American Society for the Mechanical Engineers. But then, there are very few journals in my domain. Like as I said, I am coming from environmental engineering, but there are very few journals from ASC. So maybe in that case, you also have to select the which publisher you will have a more chances of getting your work published, right? So that is also one thing. Then scholarly impact, authors' rights. You should also see the author rights, what author rights we have. And then finally, professional ethics, that is something which we have discussed already. And then there are certain other professional ethics that that must be considered while selecting all those different things, right? Okay, so appropriate scope. So I'll just show you one a small example for this. Probably yeah. Uh, just a minute. Okay, so author scope, like if you go any journal, like for this, I have selected Journal of Cleaner Production. This is one of my favorite journal in environmental engineering. So when I go to this journal, I'll always see about and I'll go aims and scope, right? So like if you see that your work is relevant to this aims and scope, then only you should proceed for the publication, right? Like for example, here they have mentioned aims and scope, and you can see like these are some of the areas they include, but are not limited. Like sometimes it is always like, we think that okay, only these areas are given, so we should not publish it, right? Sometimes, by luck, you can also have publications which not exactly matching these, but 70 to 80% are matching these, are also considered in this type of journals, right? So that is what they are saying, that it is not it includes these but are not limited to. So I still remember that I have worked on one topic, and somewhat it was not corely related to the environmental engineering, but somewhat it is related to the environment engineering, including the civil engineering aspects, like other civil engineering aspects, right? So when I have started searching for the journals, I have selected this journal and I have submitted in this particular journal. And it took almost maybe 5 to 7 revisions for a particular publication, for a particular manuscript. And fortunately, after 10 months of the rigorous revision, I got one publication done in this Journal of Cleaner Production, right? So you have to see always the aims and scope of that particular journal, then go for the editorial goal. You also try to understand, try to relate whether your work is relevant to what the editors are also working in the domain. Like, many things, many times we have seen that if a structural engineering person, like in the civil engineering, if a structural engineering person, if he is working, or if she is working in some domain which is not relevant to the environmental engineering, or which is not exactly relevant to the editors, so many time it is chance, there is a chance that your publication or your manuscript get right away rejected, right? So that is one thing that you should always find out whether the editors are working, right? If it is working in more or less same domain, then probably the chances of your publication will be more, right? Okay, then you can also go for a journal insights. So journal insights will also again give you some other areas like subject areas like renewable energy, sustainable and environment, management, monitoring, policy and law. So I think this is what we were talking about, that the subjects areas include but not limited to. So they were focusing on the genre of cleaner production, but not limited to only cleaner production. They can also try to focus in the policy and law, then in terms of the monitoring, in terms of the management. So all those different aspects can be considered while while considering any sort of journal. Okay, then impact again very important. We'll see that how the impact factor is calculated and all that. So this is like 10 impact factor. Again, this is a 5 years impact factor. So generally journals do not get impact factor for the first year, second year, third year, or fourth year. Generally, when journal starts, after that 5 years, journal will start getting the impact factor. So that is again very important to be considered. Article publishing options, what options you have, like sometimes you try to select a journal and unfortunately it becomes open access, and open access required funding, right? Probably many private institutions do not have the funding. Even sometimes IITs are also, or NITs are also not having funding. They get the funding through the research projects and that's how they try to publish. But there are certain universities in the world which provides funding for the publication, right? So in that case we can obviously go for open access, right? And there is one, maybe you can say there is a way, like I've seen uh, that certainly there are certain journals which is open access only, but considering the status of our economic status of our country, there are certain journals which try to accept our paper or accept our publication or manuscript, right? So you can also try such kind of journals by putting a mail, right? It should not simply rely on whatever given in the website. You can simply focus that okay, if it is in your domain, probably you just write a mail that we do not have the funding. So is there any possibility to waive off the amount? So many times I have seen that they try to waive off for country like India, since we are not like highly rich country. So in that consideration, they will always give 70 to 80% of waive off, and that makes like very helpful for us, right? Because even 70 to 80% means almost you are reducing the 80% of your fees, and at least that much sometimes that is also affordable, right? So probably that kind of journals are also available. And obviously, see, writing a mail is not a big thing. You just simply write a mail and there are chances that your manuscript at least will go through the peer review, right? And then there is another option, that is subscription. So there is no need to pay the fees, and your online, I mean your publication will go in a subscription mode. So you can always see both type of things while selecting your journal. Okay, the another thing is like very important is publishing timeline. So how many days it takes, this is very important. Like very few journals, very few publishers have such kind of data, right? That how many days it will take for the first decision, how many days it will take submission to decision after the review, how many days it is taking for the acceptance. So I think this is very important, right? So when you go through the journal selection, probably I will suggest that you always have to you must go through this type of data-based journal where you will find the transparency of the timelines, right? Okay, and then finally, obviously, abstracting and indexing. So in general, if you see, many people, they say, sir, हमने SCI में कर दिया, हमने SCI में कर दिया. In India, we have the tendency that we should focus mostly towards the Scopus and SCI journals. Now, SCI, what is SCI? Is a Science Citation Index Expander. It is one of the very peer-reviewed, very, not all the journals in the elsewhere or even the Springer or the ASC coming under the SCI, right? So earlier it was SCI, but now it is SCIE, that is Science Citation Index Expanded. So which is again very important type of indexing, which indicates that this journal comes into very renowned category or peer reviewed category or transparent category, right? So there are different criteria, probably that is for the journals, not for us. But then I think you should always focus that our studies must be following either Scopus or either SCI mostly, right? And in for the students, those who are coming, or for the faculties, those who are coming from the ABDC list, sorry, that is from the management, they can also target ABDC list. There is a Australian Business Dean Council databases, and from that you can find out which journal is suitable for you. So that can also be followed. But again, that must be indexed in Scopus and SCI as much as possible. There are certain questions I have seen by the students, by some of the faculty members that say, sir, हमारा paper ESCI में है, but ESCI does not indicate the SCI. ESCI is a emerging source citation index, right? But but there are chances that ESCI based journals will someday will go to SCI, because ESCI journals are more susceptible to, to go through the rigorous revisions and rigorous understandings or rigorous criteria for the decision making, right? So ESCI journals may go in the future, maybe 5 years down the line, may go for the SCI, right? So again, it has to be passed through uh, different types of the criterias, given for the journals. As I said, that they should publish the timelines, they should have the publishing options, they should have the good impact factor, they should have a wide subject areas, they should have the proper aim and scope clearly mentioned. So I think these are like very important criterias which must be followed, right? Similarly, for the Springer nature, you can see that most of the things are given, like this is the aim and scope. You can see the journal metrics right away here, right? And then all the editors in chief, all the details of the editors are given here, right? So almost all different things are given in such kind of journal. Even you can see the abstract and index. Again, we can see whether it is a Scopus, whether it is SCIE, right? So this is, I think, very important when it comes for the journal selection. Okay, so I think this is like what I was talking about, the appropriate scope and all that, whether your findings new or novel, will they stimulate and contribute to the conversation on topics covered by the publication? See the description about the journal or book series. Read recently published articles. Again, very important. Like many journals, they have recently published articles which can be easily visible to everyone, right? So you can always see that what kind of work is going on, and based on that, you can obviously you can direct your little bit work towards that domain or towards that angle, right? Nowadays everyone talks about the sustainable development goals, so why not putting some ideas about how your study is relevant to the sustainable development goals? And that way, the way of accepting, not accepting, but accepting for the peer review process will be more. The chances of accepting for the peer review process will be more. And again, that will again help you to to get some comments, and again, based on the comments, you can further modify your data, or modify your work, right? So that is how I think one should follow. Okay, then this is something regarding the books. If book chapters, if someone is very looking for the book chapters or books, they can also go through the journals websites or the publishers websites. They can find there are various calls for the book chapter, there are various calls for the books, or special issues and all that, right? Okay, we'll also discuss about the special issue by the end of this particular topic. Okay, then who ensures the quality of the content published? Again, this is very important. As I said, that we should focus, we should find out that what editors are working, in which direction editors are working. If your area is relevant to, probably not 100%, but at least 60% relevant to your these editors, probably the chances of getting for the peer review process again will be more, right? But then you have to put some novel things. You should not simply go for, like, basic things in the paper and going for the publication. I mean, see, there are various tools available. Even graphs, we follow the Excel, but in Excel also there are various things available. Besides Excel, there is Origin, right? So all those Origin type of tools are also available. You can go for a MATLAB for for simulation and all that thing. So there are various ways by which you can actually increase the creativity in your work. And then obviously, based on the new and novelty things, you can further focus on the editorial board, right? Not simply like depending on the editorial board कि सर मेरा काम तो editorial board के समान है, तो वो तो लेगा ही, ऐसा नहीं होता. There are certain ways that editorial board also looks after, right? So just to tell that I am also one of the editor for one of the very reputed journal, that is Scientific Reports in by the Nature portfolio, right? So I always go for this particular different aspects of the paper, like whether there is something novel thing in your work, whether the repetitive thing has been carried out by the same by the same author, So all those different criteria we have to check, and based on that criteria only we further go for the publishing of that particular manuscript, right? Okay, then there are different like editorial roles. So the editor-in-chief is the final authority who ensures scientific quality, ethical integrity, and strategic leadership of a scholarly journal. So again, we know that there are different types of editors in the board. So that one is editor-in-chief who looks after everything and who makes that the journal will not go in a wrong way. It should follow all the ethics. And that clear message has been already given to all the associate editors, right? So I think this is very important that all the associate editors follow whatever the rules and protocols given by the editor in chief. So associate editor manages the peer review process for assigned manuscripts by selecting reviewers, evaluating reviews, and recommending editorial decisions to the editor in chief. So that is, I think, very common process that. Yeah, hello, anyone have any question? Yeah, okay. So I think this is again very important that what typical process a particular journal is following. Sometimes I have seen that there is not editor in chief, all are the associate editors, right? There are certain journals I have seen, but then again this is not the good way, because associate editors not only can handle the thing, there should be a person who can look after all those things. So there is like maybe you can say hierarchy in those editorship as well, right? Who ensures the quality of the content published. Now, this is very important. I think peer review is very important, right? If your publications are not getting reviewed, then it is like very difficult to get your data published. Sometimes it is very rigorous, like as I said, for one of my publication, Journal of Cleaner Production, it took almost 5 to 6 revisions, and after 10 months of rigorous revision I got that publication. So peer review is very important. Now, like sometimes what happened that, like being editor of one of the journal, sometimes what happened that initially I have sent a manuscript that has come to that journal to two reviewers, right? And then one reviewer immediately accepted the journal, I mean the manuscript, and the second revisor gave the minor revision, right? But then, again, I have to decide whether why this immediate acceptance has come, right? Because that is something always in the mind of the editors. So probably what, as a editor, as an associate editor, I will do, I will try to find out the third reviewer. Maybe, the comments will always help you to improve the publication of that work, whatever you have carried out, right? So I think this is very important that your paper should go through the peer review process. It should not be like within a one stroke you will get the acceptance, right? If it is getting, that means there is a problem with that journal. I'm telling you very clearly, right? So your data, your manuscript should go through the peer review process, right? So what is peer review? It's just nothing but the initial screening where the managing editors will see the whether your work is following the scope of the journal, whether it is the original work or not, whether it is basic quality or not. Like there are nowadays AI tools and all that, and many editors also looking after that, whether there is a lot like more AI based data or not available, right? So all those things like is coming under the initial screening. And then finally reviewer evaluation, where we can send this paper to independent reviewers and they come up with their comments and all those things, right? And then based on their comments we can have the editorial decision. We can find out whether it has to be accepted, it has to be revised, it has to be rejected, right? And then quality assurance, like ensures scientific rigor, ethical compliance, and credibility. So I think this is what we were talking in the initial, that credibility is very important, that which author has done what kind of work. So I think these are like very important. Okay. uh, Okay, then about the publisher also, you can find out through the rich webs. You can find out which publisher, like for example, elsewhere, right? Well, let's say since I am working a lot on elsewhere, like publications for journals selection. So I always try to find out that which different locations of the countries, different countries they are working, you know. So again, they have their some offices in India, they must be having the offices in other parts of the different country, right? So like China or Russia or Australia, all different countries must be having one offices, right? So this is again very important that what is the outreach of that particular publisher, and based on that again you try to find out the journal which you are actually looking for your publication. So that is one thing you can also find out through this different portal, ISSN portal, and that way you can also get your best selected journal for your study, right, for your publication. Okay. Then the scholarly impact, that indicates that who is going to read your publication, है ना? So that is like the readers in different countries, in India, in different location. Who is your target audience? Like, to for whom you are creating, like whether it is you are creating your study for policymakers, whether you are creating for the scientists, whether you are creating for the engineers. And I think if you go through some of my papers, I have clearly mentioned that this study will be helpful for the architects, for the engineers, for the policymakers, for the managers, for the contractors. So that is my way of writing in one line, in simple one line in the abstract, that this study will be helpful for this. So that is also one thing that always can be added in your abstract, or can be added in some way in your write up, so that your target will be specific to that particular audience. And then based on that audience, you just try to find out that in which particular journals you will find, or in which particular publications, publishers you will find that kind of audience, right? So that is also one thing. uh, Whether it is open access, that is again I think we have discussed whether it is open access or not, or hybrid mode. So that is also one thing. And then obviously you can go for the indexing and the citation matrix, right? So that is one thing can be always done. Okay, I think open access we have understood. Yeah. So this is what we were talking about, the indexing, Scopus, and Web of Science. So you see, like why I was talking about the Scopus or Web of Science or SCI, because these are like very important indexing. And whatever the journals, this is not for you, this is for the journals, right? If journals goes in as Scopus or SCI or Web of Science, then that indicates that is a very good journal for your work, right? If it is not going through the Scopus and Web of Science, all those criteria, then probably I will suggest that you should not go for that kind of journal, because that is not much reputed journal, right? So that one always should be considered. So you can see the Scopus generally passes only 18% of the journals, right? So whatever the journals will go through that particular process of selection for the Scopus, it will go through like very rigorous criteria. I think they have mentioned it is almost 14 criteria. So 14 criteria is given by them, and if any journal of any publisher is following that criteria, then only that will go in the indexing of the Scopus, right? Similarly, for the Web of Science, it will go for the 24 quality checks, and then full evaluation will be done, assess for the impact of the 4 criteria. So there are certain criteria for the Web of Science as well. So if those are going through those criteria, only in that case you will see that the journal is indexed as Scopus or Web of Science, right? So you can imagine that this is the rigorous ways by which the journals are getting filtered out for putting the good publications for the researchers. So that is one way that we can understand. Okay. Then there is one important thing, that H index and I10 index. Probably you might have seen in the Google that there is a total citation, there is H index, and there is I10 index. I10 index is very easy. Probably if you are, if and like let's say you have a 10 publications, and your each publication is having a 10 citation, so you will see that I10 index is 10, right? But H index is, what is H index? That whatever the numbers of publication, let's say you have a 20 publications, and your each of those publication is having 20 number of citation. In that case only we will say that H index is 20, right? So this is like very common thing. And again, these both are very important, right? Like if you are having a 20 H index, that means you are very good, this one, a researcher, right? So similarly, this is like for all the different authors, or for the all the different researchers. So you can always see, like through the Google Scholar, you can always filter out that which particular H index and I10 index is putting more impact on the international readers, right? So that is how you can find out. Okay. And then these are like authors ethics, authors rights, probably copyright and licensing. So You should know that whatever the data you are having, it should be transparent as much as possible. You should not hide anything as much as possible. So I think this is what the copyright and licensings and the transparency of the author things is given. I mean, should be given by the publisher. Okay. Then there is one thing that about the journal, that many times, you will get an email from very predatory journals or very unsolicited invitations that we are looking for one publisher, one publication from your work, because we have seen that your work is carried out in this domain and it is very relevant to our journal, right? I get many mails every day, right? And then they also mention that your work will be published in the issue of April 2025, and sometimes they have very less fees as well, right? I mean, sometimes they have open access, sometimes they have subscription mode, but then very less fees in the open access as well. So what happens that we try to submit that our publication, because it is required for our PhD, it is required for our promotion, and then unfortunately, that becomes fraud, and whatever the money you have put into that particular journal will automatically get wasted, because you have invested your money in very wrong journal, right? So that is what happens in many types of the journal. So these are like this is one example of the mimicry. Like there is one journal, Frontiers publication, Frontiers group, right? And sometimes different journals, I mean, having a different name, they put their journal name as a Frontiers in Molecular Medicine, and sometimes we get confused whether it is from the Frontiers group or from other group. So you can see this is Embrace Publishers. So that is also not published by the Frontiers Research Foundation. So I think these are like very common examples that we used to see on day-to-day basis, and very important while selecting your journals. You should not select such predatory journals, right? These are like cases of Omics Group, which we have found. The price for predatory publishing is $50 million. You can see, like, if you are doing, like, I mean, if such publishers are available outside, then probably it will also get banned at some point of time. But then during that, probably you might have published your paper in such kind of journals, right? So it should be avoided as much as possible. And then there are certain tools which gives the list of that particular journals which are predatory journals or predatory publishers, right? For example, you can go for Jeffrey Bial's list today, then Cabell's journalistics or predatory reports. So all those different tools will help you to find out whether the journal you are looking is a predatory or not, right? So these are like different tools. Obviously, you can go for, and you can trust those tools and get some understanding about the publishers, right? Okay. Uh, okay, there are certain tools available on journals platform or websites. You can see that to develop the skills, like how to write the paper, how to improve the English, what should be the format, how to maintain the format. So everything are given. There are different tools. So you can see that author tutorials, right? So it will really help you to have understanding of how to write the paper, right? Because I always say to my students that writing paper is an art, right? It is not like something you have written in your language, and just simply, like, many people have tendency that they will convert that Marathi into English or Hindi into English, right? But this is not the way should be followed in paper writing, right? So for that, obviously, you can go for author tutorials. I think mostly the reputed journals have these tutorials not free of cost. So you have to pay some fees and then get their benefit, right? But then again, this is like very important tool. Sometimes I used to follow during my PhD, right? Okay. Then you have these publisher guidance for the book authors. Let's say if you want to go for a book and all that, you can also check the different book chapter, book proposal checklist, that what exactly they are looking for and all that stuff, right? So this is again available in many of those reputed publishers. Okay, then again, I think this is something which is not relevant to you, since this is about how different journals are coming into ESCI, how different journals are coming into SCI. So this is, I think, all about that data. So Web of Science journal evaluation process has three main objectives that are independent from the commercial activities, right? So I think these are some of the things which is not completely relevant to what is today's our topic. But then what I want to convey here, that journals covered in ESCI, like, many times students or faculties have the confusion that whether ESCI is the same as the SCI. No, it is not the same, but it is eligible for the further evaluation and potential selection in the SCI, right? So this is like very important to understand that if your journal, whatever the journal you are selected, it is if in the ESCI, probably it has gone through some of the rigorous review for that journal, and based on obviously different criteria, and it is further eligible for the evaluation and potential selection in the SCI. This is the simple understanding of what is ESCI and what is SCI, right? Okay. And then journals that no longer meet the rigorous criteria for coverage are deselected, है ना? So like as I was talking about the ESCI, so sometimes if journals are not coming in ESCI, that means they are getting deselected already, so they won't go for SCI, right? But if anything which is selected for ESCI, obviously they become eligible, and further review will take, or maybe journal editor will take care of that, how it become the SCI. Because if you have the SCI, then the acceptance of that journal by the authors will be more, right? I mean, the authors will mostly will try to select that kind of journals which is giving Scopus or SCI index or Web of Science index, right? So these are like very important aspects while selecting the journal. So like there are many journals which probably not coming in ESI, must be avoided. ESCI at least you can focus, but if it is not SCI, then it is sometimes a problem for PhD students who are looking for the jobs, right? Okay. Uh, then I think this is something which we have already discussed. The journal selection criteria are applied consistently and objectively to each journal, है ना? So it should not be like you are just focusing on one journal and you are just trying to understand that okay, this journal has the timeline, but other journal is not having the timeline, but still it looks good. That is not at all helpful. So whatever the criterias you are looking for your selection must be followed for every different types of the journal with every different types of the publisher, right? Whether it is a Springer, which is either MDPI, whether it is a Emerald, whether it is a Sage publisher, whether it is a Wiley publisher, any, right? Any different types of the journal you can obviously put your criteria. So what are those criteria? So you can see timelines of the publication, international editorial convention, English language information, peer review process, how this journal is compared with cover journal of similar scope, right? Is this subject already well covered? Will this journal enrich WOS, that is Web of Science, with novel content? So I think all those different criteria must be considered while selecting your journal. So this is very important in terms of the journal selection, right? I think the same thing has been mentioned again and again. So I'll skip those things. Okay, there are certain journals which put the informative things on the paper or on their website. So again, that is very helpful. That this is something that they have the international editorial convention. I mean, between the editors also there is some conference, there is something which goes on, and which is again very helpful for selecting that kind of journal, right? Okay, sometimes the funding source is also recommended whenever possible. So if you have got the funding, then it is always better to put the funding sources, right? So again, because uh, this is also one criteria, right? Let's say if your project is funded, है ना, and if you got the fund, so the editor will think, okay, this is a genuine project, and the author has worked a lot on this genuine project to fulfill the objectives, right? So based on that understanding, also editor try to get that manuscript for the peer review process, right? So that is also one way that you should, if you got the funding, it's always better to put the funding. That way you can obviously acknowledging the funding agency, plus the chances of the publication will be obviously more, right? So these are some of the journal selection criteria that we have already discussed. Okay, this is about the impact factor calculation. As I said that let's say in 2013 the journal has been started, then 14, 15, 16 and 17. So 2017 we will get the impact factor for the 16. So 2016 impact factor published will be as follows. So 2016 impact factor is equal to 2016 citations to 2014 and 15 content. So whatever published in 2014 and 15 content, whatever the citations we got, that will be considered as the 2016 citations, and divided by total citable items published in 2014 and 15. That is, the total citable items in that particular journal in 2014-15. So this is how I think you can find out the impact factor. Again, this is not relevant to you as much, but this is relevant to your journals, and based on that journal, again, higher impact factor will have more impact because it has been coming through many years, right? So that is again very important. uh, so one point we were talking, self citation, है ना? So if you want that your manuscript get published, try to avoid self citation, right? As I said, 10 to 15% is fine, but if you are going more than that, probably editorial board will check that you have done more self citation, and right away it will reject from the desk, right? So that is one thing, that the self citation as much as possible avoided. Journals can be suppressed from JCR for excessive self-citation. Now we were talking about quartiles, Q1 to Q2, Q3, Q4, right? Now these quartiles are made based on the self-citation. Now there are many journals which are good, which publishes very good amount of work and good quality of the work. But unfortunately, sometimes it comes into Q3 or Q4. Why? Because that journal particularly having more self-citation. So editor has to look after that thing, whether the references that you have putting in your manuscript, whether you are doing more self citation or you are trying to refer many other studies relevant to your study, right? So I think that is how Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and again there are certain different aspects that has to be considered while selecting this. But as far as the journal selection has to be done, I would always suggest go for Q1. If not, at least go for maximum go for Q2. I would suggest don't go for Q3, Q4, because that way the impact of your study will be less, right? So that is also one criteria that can also be applied while selecting the journal. Okay. And then I think almost all things related to the journal selection we have discussed. Now the last thing that I am going to cover is whether your manuscript is ready, right? Now it comes the critical decision. So you have completed months, even years of rigorous work. Your research paper is now ready for the world. You know that you have done a lot of work. You know that you have putting a lot of novelty, new aspects within that particular area, within that particular domain, right? But then there is always a question comes in front of you, whether it has to be submitted in a regular issue or it has to be submitted in a targeted special issue, right? I think this is a very common thing nowadays. For the fast publication, you'll always go for a special issue, right? Where because it has some certain deadlines, timelines, right? So understanding the two paths, one is the steady route, right? So regular issue is the steady route. It has its own timeline. It takes own time for its completely review process, for the decision process, for the acceptance process, for the publishing process. So it will follow the same route, right? Whereas the special issue, it is a shortcut. So it focuses on a specific topic, narrow theme, often has a faster fixed deadlines for review and publication, managed by the guest editors invited for that specific topic. Its primary appeal is speed and thematic relevance. But what happens that many times, since guest editors are coming, there are a lot of guest editors you might have seen on the LinkedIn as well. On my LinkedIn also, I used to see on day-to-day basis that we are going to, there is a call for the papers, call for the book chapters and all that by the guest editors. Obviously, that's very good for the guest editors. But when it comes for the students or for the faculties, those who are publishing, for they are looking for the shortcut ways. And sometimes what happened that uh, let's say if any of the author who have put lot of self citation, and that way also we will see that the journal will automatically reduce their impact, right? Like because you have put the self citation, and then at the same time the guest editor is not much aware about everything, about although the ethical guidelines are given to them, but probably they might have not gone through every different details of that ethical guidelines, right? And that's how sometimes there is biasness occurs, and they try to select those papers which are probably relevant to I mean they are known to them, and then unfortunately many things happens, right? So probably as much as possible the special issues must be avoided. If you are selecting a very good journal and if you are finding a special issue in that good journal, probably I will say that okay, 80% that is fine, you can go for that. But as much as possible, you should try to focus on a regular issue, right? Because regular issue will have a very better peer review process and will have a better impact factor for your this particular publication, right? So I think this is what we were talking. The pressure to publish is real. The demands are clear that PhD programs require publication. University positions depend on them. Your guide and institution expect results, right? Even as a guide for many students in our institute, IIT, I also sometimes pressurize the students, right? That you try to publish journals, publication as much as possible. But then I always look after that whether it should be gone in regular issue or it should be gone in the special issue, right? So I always focus that 100%, not 100%, but then 95% of my publication, I always go for the regular issue. Special issue sometimes when you know that this is really very emerging area, very new area, and as of now there is no dedicated publication, dedicated journal for this kind of area, then only I may go for the special issue. But very rarely, I can say that 5 to 10% I go for the special issue, right? So that is again very important, because directly special issue is not having any impact factor. So what are the special issue you'll be having long term? If you want to have a more citation, it is always better that you should go for a regular issue, right? So there are some hidden risks of the special issues. A growing body of evidence reveals that special issues are disproportionately exploited for unethical practices, as what we were talking. They have become a primary vehicle for compromise peer review. So what happens that, as I said, in one of my journal, that is where I'm working as the editor. So if someone is accepting it in the first stroke itself, so many times it also happens in special issue that if it is accepted, immediately editor, guest editor, what they will do, they will send mail to the author that your paper is getting accepted, right? If it is not coming through the revision. So that is something which we are saying the manipulation. I mean, it should not be done, right? Because there are a lot of many researchers in the entire community who have putting their pasina bahaya unhone for all those publication. They have done lot of hard work, and simply you are putting acceptance. So I think this is one thing which always good editors will consider, that they will always process a proper journal through the peer review process, right? And then paper mill activity, the systematic production and the sale of fraudulent paper. So I think somehow there are fraud. Probably you might have seen there are certain journals, very reputed journals, also got banned recently from the Science Direct, that is from the Elsevier, right? Because the editors of that journal were trying to do some fraudulent activities, right? So I think this is something which should be avoided as much as possible, right? Okay, and then yeah, so this is what I think I was talking about: evidence file, mass retraction at major publisher. So if you are skipping the peer review process, and then you are trying to get your publication, and you are doing a lot of self citation, and you are sometimes citing the papers, sometimes we also get comments from the reviewers that try to cite 4 or 5 papers he will list out or she will list out in your review comments, and will say that try to refer these particular publications for your study. And what we will do immediately, for the sake of publication, for the sake of acceptance of the publication, we will immediately put all those 4 or 5 references in our study, right? I think that must be avoided as much as possible. If that publication is relevant to your study, then only you should add those references in your papers, right? Otherwise, there are chances that you will have to follow the consequences of that particular problem, right? Maybe it will nowadays the publishers are getting more strict, right? And they will go through all the ethical guidelines, they will check everything, and then fortunately, unfortunately, whatever you say, but then many times a lot of mass retractions of the papers has been happened, right? So probably that should be avoided. So you can see that 400 papers retracted through the journal Springer, 8,000 plus papers are retracted to the Hindavi journal. So all those, like, very important thing. Then this is MDPI journals, 51 papers retracted from the special issues. Uh, the journal lost its impact factor and was removed from the WOS. Again, the indexing that they have achieved through the good publication, unfortunately, they lost their this Web of Science index due to these ethical breaches. And then case studies like IOP conference series also. So they have also retracted some papers like 463. These are some of the data got through the obviously websites. Then the case study, Royal Society of Chemistry, which is again very good investigation, launched into over 50 papers due to concerns about the special issue editorial practices, right? This is what we were talking about, the special issues. Over 80 papers from 2021 2022 special issue selections flag for the compromised peer review. So these are some of the different problems that we see with the special issues mostly. Okay. Then the anatomy of compromised special issues, predatory guest editors, fraudulent peer review rings, payment for the publication, and exploiting pressure. So I think these are some of the things that generally can be seen in terms of the predatory special issues. And then obviously with those kind of things, probably author will suffer, right? I mean, unfortunately, unfortunately, the authors will suffer, or the PhD students will suffer, or the faculties will suffer with their promotions and their consequences, right? So probably you should always be wise to select a right type of journal through the right process rather than going for the shortcuts, right? Okay, then you can always check for, I mean, there is a checklist sort of these things, do's and don'ts. So green flags, proceed with caution, recommend by your trusted supervisor or senior mentor. The guest editors are renowned experts in your field with clean verifiable records. The journal is published by a top tier reputable academic society or publisher known for the rigorous oversight. So if such things are easily doable, then go for these kind of journals and avoid this at all cost. Unsolicited invitations, many times we get the invitation for the faster publication, should be avoided as much as possible. And individual ask for the payment separate from the journal's official APC, again that should be avoided. Guarantees of publication or promises of an unusually fast review process, that must be avoided. And the topic is overly broad or doesn't align with the journal's established scope, that should be avoided, right? So I think this is a decision framework that one can always consider while selecting the journals. So I think this is all about the journals selection, indexing, and then the special issue pattern. I think I should say thanks to all of you for patiently listening me. So if you have any questions, we can take few questions.
Yes, you can ask the questions directly,
Hello.
dear participants.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good morning, sir. I'm calling. I'm reporting from Dr. D.Y. Patil Institute of Technology, Pune.
Yeah.
Uh, Sir, you have suggested in the very first section of your recording. You said that you before proceeding for a journal, you make a database of 150 journals for your purpose, right? So I
Right,
just
right.
wanted to ask you, what are the criterias to be considered for a publication to be authenticated? Because before I make my personalized that list, I must know what are the criterias that I should consider. Um because many a times I try to select a journal and then I find it that it is not authenticated. But I invest so much of time in that, and at the last I find that the journal is not authenticated, and then again I need to proceed with right from the scratch. So could you put some light on this, sir?
Right.
Although yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Ruby, for this very genuine question. I think, see, while coming to journal selection, especially for me or my research group, what I try to focus, that I have initially screened out publishers, the name of the publishers, which are very reputed. So when you simply put, like if you simply put on the Google the reputed publishers for the research studies, so you will get few names which are very common, which are known by known to everyone. For example, elsewhere Science Direct is one of the very common name heard by everyone, right? Then second is maybe the Springer Nature, maybe the ASC. So I think this is my first criteria, always being my first criteria, that I should focus on the journals published by the reputed publisher, right? So first I have done that. Then second, what I have done is uh, I am trying to, like, my focus is towards biochar, towards biogas, anaerobic digestion, or towards composting, right? So I have fixed domain. I never worked in wide area of the environmental engineering. There are many things that can be done in environmental engineering, but I am very restricted to my area, right? So that is my second criteria to go for the journal. So first आपको पता हो गया है that there is a reputed publishers. Then second, you have know that your domain is very known, right? Now after the domain, you will always find the best renowned professors throughout the world, throughout even India. Maybe we have the reputed institutes in India. There are certain private universities, there are certain government universities which are very reputed, as you know, right? So you can always follow that what the reputed institutes, as far as I know, DY Patil is very known institute, right? So DY Patil, maybe agar if kuch students or the faculties, those who are publishing in very good journal, select that journal, take that journal, keep it in your Excel sheet, and similarly go for IIT, go for NIT, go for ISER, go for central universities, go for Stanford, go for Michigan University, go for University of Florida, right? You try to consider all those different researchers. Obviously, go through the Google Scholar, not required that you should always go through the profile of the faculty, but then go through the Google Scholar and you will get many their publication. So that is my third criteria, that what journals they are selecting for their publication. Now, after finding the name of the journals, I will go into that journals and I will check every different aspects of the journal, that is aim and scope, whether it is really relevant to my area or not. Then I will also check the impact factor of that journal and Scopus and SCI. So I have like filters for 4 to 6 different types of criteria. Based on those criteria, I have decided I never go for impact factor. To be genuine, madam, I never go for impact factor. I go for whether the journal is being SCI or Scopus, right? Whether it is 1.5 impact factor, whether it is 10.5 impact factor, that hardly matters for me, because impact factor may keep changing again and again. But once the journal comes in SCI, there are very few chances, very few, that it will retracted to, unless and until some unfortunate thing happens, then only it will retracted to other type of indexing, or simply it will be banned. It is very rare, right? But then nowadays it is like very common things which we are looking. Like recently I have heard that Stoten also, some of the papers, chemosphere automatically got impact factor to 0, right? So there are certain journals, like in one of our journal, like bioresource technology, also face some problems. So I think there are few journals which are facing problems in the reputed publishers as well. But then these are like 4 to 8 criteria which I generally follow while selecting my journals. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Any other
Very good.
questions?
Good morning, sir. Hello.
Yeah, I'm listening. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Dr. Amit Jha from Sandeep University, sir.
Yes,
First
yes.
of all, sir, thank you for giving such a tremendous knowledge about how to select the journal for the publications. So my question is, sir, what is the meaning of the partner journals? For example, Cement is a partner journal of Cement, Concrete and Research. They are going for volume 22. Still, they have no abstracting, no indexing, sir. So should I go for that paper or not, sir?
Okay,
Journal.
okay. Very good, very good. I think this is I was not expecting this, but then yeah, it's really very important question. So I'll tell you one story about my PhD during my publication. So there was a journal in environmental engineering, it's a bioresource technology. It's a very good journal, very reputed journal at that point of time, and it was having around 9 impact factor in 2000, I guess 17 or 18. Okay, 2018. I was like looking for that journal, that my PhD kar raha hu, so I should get one publication in that particular journal. That was named as a bioresource technology, and unfortunately I was not getting any publication in that journal. So immediately in 2018, there's a new journal came in the by the same publisher called as Bioresource Technology Reports. So people say it's a sister journal or the partner journal for the bioresource technology, right? And obviously, because the cover page of the bioresource technology reports and the bioresource technology, which is the old journal, was the same, more or less same, right? But the editors were different. So what I did, obviously, I was not aware at that time that what is sister journal, but and what is partner journal, right? But then what I understood that it indicates the name of the bioresource technology, so it must be genuine, right? That is what my thought process followed. And then what I did, I have submitted my one of my review paper in that journal, right, in 2018. And I guess since it was a very new journal, so within 3 to 4 months I got my comments. I mean, sorry, within 2 months I got comments, and after two revisions I got my paper acceptance. That point of time, it was zero impact factor for that journal, because since it is a new journal, it won't be having any impact factor. But with time, like down the line, now it's 2025, right? So now that particular journal, that is bioresource technology report, is having impact factor of 4.5, right? And also indexed in Scopus, not in SCI, but it is indexed in Scopus. So sometimes you have to see whether that journal is being followed by the old journal, which is very reputed or not. So there is no like such risk if it is followed by the reputed journal. But if you see the cases with the reputed, that is the older journal, there are a lot of such problems or a lot of cases which we may see in general. Obviously Google में आप करो तो आपको बहुत सारी चीजें पता चल जाएगी. So in that case, if you find there is any issue, any challenge with that particular journal or the papers, in that case, I must say that you should avoid such partner journal, क्योंकि उसका partner journal भी यही follow करेगा, right? So follow your thought process, follow your instinct, what it indicates. अगर आपको लगता है कि नहीं, आपका वो पुराना जर्नल अच्छे से काम कर रहा है, अच्छा पब्लिश कर रहा है, अच्छा इम्पैक्ट फैक्टर दे रहा है, उसको स्कीमागो, what we have discussed, schemago website, just find out whether it is in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and based on that probably you can decide whether you have to go for a partner journal or not. So that is one way. So that is what I have followed. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Mayur, I'm having one question.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Khurram, please.
Is there any other questions? Dr. Mayur Shinde, I think, has one question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
having
sir.
one question. I have posted my question in chat box. Also, I'm having one question. Like some journals are having Scopus indexing and Q1 and Q2 status, but they don't have impact factor. So should we go for publication in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
journal?
See, impact factor is probably, probably that journal is new. So if that journal is new, then it won't be having impact factor. It will be only having site score, right? But it will take minimum 5 years.
No, that journal is very old, like 10, 15 years back they established.
No, but then in that case, there is a problem with that journal. Maybe, as I said, uh, there are some activities going on which probably not accepted by the not by accepted by the readers or by the authors. So in that case,
Okay.
must be avoided. At least there should be some impact factor.
Okay. And one more question is there. I have posted in chat box, so just check it out.
Okay, I'll see. Chart is not available right now.
So I'll say the question.
Yeah, you can send me.
Sometimes reviewers suggest citing papers that we feel are not directly relevant to our study. What is the best way to handle such situations while responding to reviewers and choosing a suitable journal?
Yeah, see, I think Dr. Mayur, I think we can always. I mean, what I do in during my publication, I will tell you that I will give the rebuttal. See, sometimes what happen, they gave me 4 5 name of the papers, title of the papers, and they said that this must be cited. But then I have gone through the papers, I have gone through the different angles of that papers, introduction, abstract, materials and methods. If I find that anything is relevant to my study, I will definitely put, right? But if I find that it is not at all relevant to my study, I will simply send a rebuttal that out of these 5 journals, I have found these out of these five papers, I found these two papers are very relevant to my study and have been added. And I won't say that the three papers have not been added. This is how I try to give comments to the to the editorial or to the reviewers, right? Because sometimes if you say that these three papers I have not added, sometimes it will go in a negative direction.
Okay, okay, okay. But because of that, one
Sir,
of my
one
friend's
question, sir.
paper has been rejected. He has given wise answer to him, but still his paper was got rejected.
Okay, but then that case, I mean, see, again, it depends on the reviewers and also editors, right? What happened that
Mm.
uh, I'm like the editor for one of the journal, and when any review comments come to me along with the decision reject, I always see why he's rejecting. Now, some
Okay.
editors, what they do, they simply see the decision, and based on their decision they put their decision. See, because I'll tell you, Dr. Mayur, that uh, editorship is really very very challenging thing. What I have found, I am like almost 1 year I am the editor of that journal, but I found this very challenging because every day you get almost 3 to 4 papers. You just imagine 3 to 4 papers every day, and putting it through the review process becomes very difficult for that editor, right? So editor, but again, for having a peer review, for having a proper decision, editor must see why a particular reviewer has rejected that paper. And if editor will find that the rejected because of this particular thing, then probably he can take the right decision. I mean, at the end, as I said, that editor has the rights to take the decision.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Uh,
Sir, one
we have
question,
one
sir.
last question.
One
Yes.
question, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
please
please
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Last question, sir. My name is. Hello. Hello, sir.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sir, suppose, sir, I published one paper in SCI, and after few years, it delisted from that SCI. So should I say that? Can I say that that paper is in SCI?
Uh, no, I think in that this is again a very good question. See, I have my CV, and in my CV, whenever I try to submit CV to some like for example, if I want to send it to Dr. Kuram, so I will always go through my CV once. I will check whether it is in FCI or not, whether that impact factor journal has been changed or not. So I would say that if it has been delisted through the SCI, it is always better वो SCI से remove कर दो आप, because otherwise it won't go in a right way. I mean, the people may say that you are putting a wrong information.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
We have one last question in the chat box. It's from participant Yojana Pudali. I have submitted the paper to the Springer Nature Journal, Discover Civil
Mm-hmm.
Engineering. It is under
Mm-hmm.
process, but they have published my paper in preprint. If the paper is not published in the journal, in that case, whether I have lost my research data or not. He's saying,
Uh, Preprints, see, I think Springer Nature is having that preprint wala option, and I guess probably in preprint they are not publishing everything as far as I know. I'm not sure whether in preprint, but whenever it comes for the preprint, I never give then a tick on the preprint, because sometimes if they are putting everything to the international readers, so it may catch into plagiarism. So putting into preprint must be avoided as much as possible. And you
But
can
which
always ask them, you can always ask journal to remove it from the preprint. I mean, if but then you might have ticked it while submitting your paper. So
she is saying that she has ticked the preprint option.
Yeah, so I think it should be avoided as much as possible because it may catch into plagiarism. But
Sir, I
then,
have one
I
question.
want to know whether it is already in a review process or already reviewed and got rejected.
Hello. Yes, ma'am. If you are in the meeting, you can answer the question. I had take the preprint option. It is in review.
It is in review. Then I think it's fine. Then probably it is in review. Then that's why they might have done it for the preprint. But then must be avoided as much as possible. I never click it on the preprint. Never.
Oh, are there any more questions?
Sir, I have one question. Am I audible?
Yeah, please, Dr. Rohit, please.
No, this is Dr. Richard, sir. Sir, I need to ask if conference, suppose some conference has a special journal issue. So whether that journal, whatever the paper will be published, is it of equal importance as of journal, or will
No,
it have
no,
some?
no, no. No, special, as I said, special issue will not have the equal importance, although it has some impact, but then it would be the equal importance that you will be having with the regular issue, with the journal issue. But sometimes what happened, Dr. Ishad, that conferences will also publish I have seen nowadays it is been followed that many very good conferences, they tie up with a journal and they don't go for a special issue, they go for a regular issue. So it will
Mm,
have more impact than the special issue.
then is the special issue journal is counted as a journal paper or no?
It will be considered as a journal paper only, but then since it will be always in the special issue, I mean, see, if you are applying somewhere and if someone goes through that particular your CV, and if he tries to, generally it is not followed, but if he tries to, find out the detail, and if he finds that it is in a special issue, so it will having a less impact. That is what we see in our, while recruiting the faculties.
Okay, okay.
So it is
Thank you, sir.
always suggested that try to put in, these regular issues, special issues. If it is in very good reputed journal, you can obviously consider. But then, I mean, as far as possible, you try to submit in regular issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any more questions?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Just please ask first because we have to conclude the session. Please.
Yes, sir. Will you please focus on this AB category in ABDC journal?
Uh, Madam,
Yes.
I have not worked, I mean, with these ABDC category, but as far as I know that there are certain, ABDC journal list, which is generally useful for the management faculties or management students, which indicates that if your journals are coming in ABDC list, then it can be said that these journals are good for the management related studies, right? And under the ABDC list, again, there are a lot of number of journals, uh, and those journals again has impact factors. They have indexing between the Scopus, SCI. So that again you have to find out. Again, going into that in that particular journal. For example, when I was working in one of the institute, that institute used to follow ABDC list, and I used to see before selecting my journal whether my journal is coming in ABDC list or not. And once I find that okay, it is coming in the ABDC list, what I have done, I was finding that whether that journal is having SCI or Scopus or not. So these are like the filters. These are like the filters. ABDC list is the filter for the managerial candidates.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for wonderful session.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now we can conclude the session. Thank you very much, Dr. Jain, for such an insightful and informative session. Your discussion have taken up many topics related to the topics such as authorship criteria, journal selection hierarchy, researcher's profile, finding the journal, finding the relevant journal related to our study, and like some journal metrics such as indexing, timelines, impact factor, etc. Finding information about the publishers, research metrics, be aware of the fraudulent publishers, and again about the publication strategy, whether by a regular or a special issue. So your detailed explanation has provided our participants, I hope, has provided our participants with much needed clarity on publishing strategies. And on behalf of TSSM Devrabhai Sawant College of Engineering and Research, Pune, and Department of Civil Engineering, I sincerely thank you for your valuable time and guidance. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. I think you're on mute, sir. I think you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Khurram and Dr.
Thank you,
Irshad
sir.
and entire team for having me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So for the participants, I have uploaded the platform link in the chat box. We are not going to upload it in the WhatsApp group today because many of the participants are not attending the session. So I request you to just take the feedback form link from the chat box. So I want to say it again for all the participants that attendance is necessary to obtain a certificate. So if you merely registering and not attending the session will not make you eligible for the certificates. Okay. So please, we are receiving around 150 to 160 people strength, but the registration is around more than 250. Okay, so I'm keeping the session open till say 10 to 15 minutes more, and then I will end it. Please fill the feedback form.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. So, did you mention that the feedback is sent in the chat section?
Yes, it is in the chat box.
Sir, but chat section was not visible.
Ma'am, you try, either your app is not updated. Try one thing, you open the
Okay.
Teams in the browser. In the browser you open, you will find the chat box.
Okay, so I'm just accessing it from the Teams app, sir. Because
That's
I
what
do
I'm
not have,
saying.
like, right now I don't have a
If it is
laptop with me, so
okay.
yeah.
Okay. So you're not able to get that feedback form link. Okay.
Yeah, feedback link. Yeah.
If possible, sir, can you send it on the WhatsApp group?
The thing is on WhatsApp group, all the 250 to 60 registered candidates are there, but they are not
So
attending
you
the session.
can also like see the attendees list from the our team section itself. Like there, it has been recorded like the participants who have registered.
Okay,
I
we will
mean
see
those who
what
are
can be done.
attending. Sorry.
Okay, we
Yeah.
will see
Yeah.
what can be done.
No,
We will
for
see what
Thanks, sir.
Ruby ma'am, for that we need to do the registration of participant, and most of the participant have not
Yeah, I
verified.
truly
As
understand
you
that.
can
Yeah,
see,
I truly understand
yes,
that.
sir.
But
So that
the
that's
concern
why it
was,
is difficult to.
yeah. So can you please
No,
send
ma'am.
it on the what's personal if I can ping you?
Yeah, that can be
Yeah,
possible.
That can be
that
done,
will help. I
please.
hope. Yeah.
Sir,
And
I'm also
yeah,
facing the same problem.
Dr. Mayur Jain's speech was like really like it was a very wonderful talk that he has given. We had really learned a lot, the experiences and the findings that he has shared with us. It is like truly, sir, it's a truly very amazing session.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
So we
Sorry,
will
sir, but
convey
I'm
your
also
feedback.
facing the
We
same
will
problem.
surely convey your feedback to him, ma'am. Thank you.
Sir, actually, I'm also facing the same problem. My chat box also not activated.
Okay, so what we will suggest from the next session, please either update your app in the laptop or access the Teams from a browser or from a web browser.
Okay, sir.
Because probably for this session we will allow, But for the next session, we will be strictly sending the feedback form link on the chat box only. If you have filled the feedback form, you can leave the meeting so that I can end the meeting. Still, there are 93, 94 people. So
Hello, sir. Actually, I'm using the updated version only. But when I open the chat, it is showing that I do not have the access to the chat.
okay, we will solve the issue. If there is a such type of issues coming, we will solve the issue, and from the next session we will see that. Yeah, for this session, we are putting the form in the WhatsApp group. Okay. So the next session will start from 2 p.m. Please be on time for the next session. Next session will be from Dr. Chintaman Esbari, Scientist, Traffic Engineering and Safety Division, CSIR, CRRI, New Delhi. And the topic which we will be speaking on will be paper submission process, types of paper, publication workflow, responding to reviewers, and author identifiers. So we will be starting by 2 p.m.